Okay, notifications are out.
We are live.
Hello, good morning. Okay, so we have ES and William Zimmerman. Good morning, everybody.
And Eric, yes, you were the first one there, not counting Shelley and I.
Is ES Eric?
Eric Schmidt, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, and I can see that we're up. And good morning with a Gypsy Kiss, the Q&A session. I'm Shelley Carney. And Toby's coming up. Hello.
What? You can't see me?
Yeah, I'm just saying, say good morning.
Oh, okay. Man of the Barn. We have moderators on board. That's good.
Mark Conway. Akash Gabriel.
All right. Jimmy Fast's in the house.
JT.
Brian Schultz.
Shaco Starson. Okay.
Well, we got a good place to start. So a couple of things before we get started, and I'll mention this again. I got a note from my good friend Mike Collings, who runs Calazars, and who is that? Mark Conway. Wow, Mark
Conway with the super chat. Thank
you,
Mark.
Thank you, and make sure you get a question asked before we leave for the day. Excuse me. So I wanted to mention our friend Mike Cowlings, who has a YouTube channel called Calazars. He's running a contest called Calazars Grand Adventure 2. And if you go over to his YouTube channel, you'll see that he's giving away 7 treasure-related books, including the 3 Forrest Fenn memoirs. If you join the Grand Adventure and figure out the puzzles, etc., etc. Also, you can find him at on Facebook at Calazars Grand Adventure. And if I'm not sounding really coherent today, it's because there's a slight delay between when I'm talking and when it's coming back to me in these headphones. And I haven't figured out how to resolve that just yet, except to ignore myself. But I need them in order to be able to hear Shelley. So, Shelley?
Okay, so Bill Cross is here from Texas and Wayne Peterson as well. Good morning. Are we ready to get started with some questions? I see we have our first question here from Shaco Star Sun. Do you see that?
I do. So have you ever considered Fort Uncompadre? I'm not even sure I know how to pronounce that, as where warm waters halt. Obviously not. I think I've heard of it in terms of history, but I haven't considered it in terms of the chase. We'll take a look into it, maybe come up with a better answer for you in one of our upcoming shows. The other thing too, guys, if you do have a question, as opposed to just chatting amongst yourself, and we do highly recommend that you have a conversation amongst yourself as each of you is making your own comments. But if you have something for us, make sure you start it with an uppercase AGK so that we know it's a question and it doesn't go screaming by. And again, Mark, thank you very much for your super chat. We really appreciate it. For those of you who would like to contribute to the super chat, if you look down at the bottom of the super chat, see, this is going to be tough. If you look down at the bottom of the super chat, or I'm sorry, of the chat window, you'll see an emoji icon, and you'll see a dollar sign icon. And if you click on that dollar sign icon, you're able to contribute to our project here. Excuse me. You know, Mark, you're right. We do put a lot of work into it, but we also have a lot of fun with it. We've been talking about this Saturday event now, Shelley and I, for a couple of days and kind of planning it out and really looking forward to it. And our plan at the moment is to have an event like this probably once a month, because we get enough people say, you know, we can't see your show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I don't know, I'll look at the statistics afterwards and see how many people we had viewing and how many questions, things like that, decide whether or not whether or not it's worthwhile for all of us to do this. So it is Saturday, and I'm sure that lots of other things to do.
And we had Fibonacci here this morning. Good morning. And Shaka Starson, that's going to be a hard name to say. It says it's near Delta, Colorado. And the Ute is Redwater's, Fort is Halt. We hadn't heard of it.
Haven't heard of it. I'm wondering, is it on tribal property? Because I know some of the more historic forts ended up on tribal property as the reservations were outlined and defined. So if it's on tribal property, that's probably why we don't know anything about it, because we avoid tribal property. We just don't think the treasure is there. So Mark has this question. AGK, based on Fenn's last 6 questions, do you think his answers were less cryptic than in the past? That's an interesting question. I don't know. I honestly, the conclusion I came to, and I think it's because we believe that Fenn is coming to the end of his treasure life cycle, his 15-year treasure life cycle, and he's lost interest in it. I would say that they were less cryptic than they were in the past. And I think the reason is, in the past, he made them intentionally, and I say them as a generalization. I don't know necessarily that they were all like that, but it struck me that as I compared this year's responses to previous year's responses, the previous year's responses tended to be, as you referred to it, Mark, more cryptic, because for two reasons. Number one, he was trying not to give away what I'd call hard clues, soft hints, but he was trying to maintain a marketing level of interest in the chase. This year's questions struck me as, if not informative, they were at least straightforward, and that I don't think he feels like he has to, work at doing any more marketing. I don't think he has to be cryptic so that he can keep our interest. The one element of his responses that I thought that was interesting and can be taken as potential marketing is his reference to his gut feeling that, the treasure could be found this coming summer. I think that was cryptic in the sense that it was neither a hint or a clue, but his inability, and I know this feeling because it happens to me a lot, his inability not to market. He's always got to do a little bit of marketing, and I think it was reflected in that particular response. But I think, you could have almost written some of his responses into the beginning of another memoir. What do you think, Shel?
Well, I agree, and what he gave out mostly were his do nots, although except for the, I feel somebody's going to find it this summer. I think that caused a little bit of a, an injection of excitement into the
energy
conversation. Yeah. But at the same time, I look at it as, oh, well, that's good marketing. And hey, I can use that too. I can tell everybody, look, Forrest Fenn says somebody's going to find the treasure this summer. It should be used. So jump on board now. I think the end is drawing ever nigh. So that's a good way to go. But yeah, the rest of it was kind of like, do not do this or do not do that. It wasn't. I think we've discovered that read the book, read the poem is about as far as he's going to go with giving us instructions on what to do.
Yeah, or his last one in the interview on Nightline where he said, "Keep it simple," Mm-hmm. So, Tom, AGK, have you considered that Forrest Fenn possibly built his own kiva somewhere like those he excavated at San Lazaro might help explain the blaze and oops, it jumped up on me, and the wood in the same location. We have not considered that as a possibility, Tom. Morning, Journeyman. AGK from Mark Conway. Based on Fenn's last... Oh, I already answered that. Sorry.
So we have a contribution to Super Chat from B Cross and another one from Shaka Starson.
Oh, well, thank you both very much. We truly appreciate these. They really do inspire us to work harder and continue doing the work related to the chase and pretty much stick with it. So thank you very much for those. We really appreciate it. Let's see. Uncompadre. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lori, for helping with the pronunciation. Uncorn. Oh, is that right? Uncompadre. Uncompadre. Oh, like a relative. Uncompadre. That's how we say it in Spanish when you talk about somebody who's related to you. Uncompadre. So I wonder if that's where it came from. We'll have to look that up and see if un compadre is the same as the Spanish un compadre. That is not a hint or a clue.
Do you see the question from ES? Can you share for us dedicated folks a hint at the 6 questions AGK sent to Fenn? The questions that we sent to Fenn.
Can you share? Oh, okay. So the process included Shelley and I picking the 6 questions that A, met all the rules, and B, we felt like wouldn't offend Fenn and would get a response. So I think we did that on Tuesday after we talked to you guys. And then the next day, Shelley composed a letter and sent it off to Fenner. The Fenner. Oh, this is going to be so hard. I wish there was a way I could listen to you and not listen to myself. And to the best of my knowledge, we haven't received a response yet. Shelley?
No, we have not.
No. So Eric, no, we just we're pursuing it, and as soon as we get a response, we'll let everybody know. and if we get it in time, we'll do a show on it. If we don't, we have alternatives for a show this week. So
he wants a hint of what we asked. So I can say that we asked some very simple, direct, straightforward questions. Nothing compound. Nothing
yes,
run
no.
on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah,
like
we stuck to the rules that we advised everybody of. Open-ended questions, non-compound, no yes, no questions, and they should start with who, what, where, when, how, and I even allowed for room for why, which is not a question that I normally ask unless I want to be expressly confrontational. So they were 6 questions that offered him a range of things to think about. They were not... I wouldn't call them superbly intrusive. They just gave him a chance to answer them. Wanted to make him comfortable with the idea, because what I'd like to do is maybe do the same thing that Jenny does and ask him once a year, take questions from our viewers and send them in. So
since we're having our anniversary coming up, it would be a good thing to share then.
Oh, that's right. So Shelley reminded me that we have our 1-year anniversary of our first program, which was not a live stream, it was a video coming up here on March 7th. So
we have a question from Man in the Barn. Do you see that?
Man in the Barn. Hey, Man, do you think that the Fort Clark picture references anything important? Because at the time Fort Clark was active, I've always questioned if that is a picture of Peggy or a young pic of his mother. Oh, okay. Off the top of my head, I can't get an image of that particular photograph. I'm going to have to go back and look at it. But I will look at it and I will give you a response in the comments. I want you to know that we appreciate you moderating these things, and I want to make sure that we get your questions answered. So I'll take a look at it, maybe put it in the comments when we post this. Shaq O'Star Son, Shaq O Star Son, Trying to figure out that. Lord James, Uncompadre. How's that? That better? Let's see. Perfect. Oh, it's perfect. Thanks. Shock of the Indian Red Waters, Wayne Peterson. AGK, what do you consider north of Santa Fe degrees wise? Same thing as Forrest. He was once asked, and I don't have the reference for it, but he was once asked what is north of Santa Fe, and basically his response was the range of north is from 271 degrees to 89 degrees. So he considers the whole north, that's north. That's what he calls it. So I think we have to consider that as well. Although when you combine that with the 8.25 miles north of the outer boundaries of Santa Fe, you end up with an interesting map. But we've done the work. So Calazars, hey, good morning, Mike. We mentioned you earlier. This is the gentleman that I was referring to earlier. Calazars is Mike Cowlings. He has a YouTube channel that also it covers Fenn search or Fenn's treasure, but it also covers a number of other treasure hunts as well. And right now on his YouTube channel and his Facebook page, he has a viewer competition, and if you've solved the puzzles, you qualify for winning one of 7 treasure hunt books, including the 3 Forrest Fenn memoirs. So, Mike, when you get a chance, just put enter a comment about the competition and where on Facebook people can get more information. Okay. Fenn has never responded to my emails. What Chakra Starson, don't feel bad. There was a point at which I realized he was going to answer all my emails. Either he does on occasion, but that's just the nature of things, and I wouldn't take it personally. He gets hundreds of them, and he probably can't answer all of them without giving you a hint. Good morning, Joel. Did I say that already? Let's see. Dirty Water, Red Lake. Oh, so it's not one of my relatives. AGK from Joel Lewicki. You have had some pretty complicated ideas about the search. How are you attempting to simplify, and how would you suggest others simplify? If you look at Shelley's, at the video that we released yesterday, where Shelley talks about getting back to basics, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get back to basics. And we started that as part of the process of our Thursday show, where we're covering the book and the chapters in the book. And we are getting back to basics in the sense that we're reading the book, reading the poem over and over again until we've got it memorized, and then reading the book and again, looking for hints that might help us with the clues. So we are getting back to basics. And the other thing too, I'm not convinced that our ideas necessarily are that complicated. To me, the simplest solution for warm waters, which is what came up when I first entered the word in Google several years ago, being the New Mexico Game and Fish regulations. That sounds like a very simple solution to me. So,
well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Since you're talking about our show yesterday, and for those of you who've watched it, we're talking about Fenn's advice to find the treasure, which is read the book, study the poem, memorize the poem, go back and read the book again. And we're doing that. We're doing that with the book club. We've already done it several times over the years, and I'm still waiting for the magical solution to pop into my head to tell me where to go. But from reading the book and studying the poem to the magical solution, there's a piece missing, right? There's a piece missing. What is that? I don't understand how to get there. So what is that missing piece, and how do we fill that in?
You've hit me with that a couple of times before. And so I'm not sure I'm ready to share this. and maybe what we just need to do is have a program on this. Okay, so I have the answer in my head. I have the answer to that question in my head, and in the conversations that you and I have had, it comes out in a small way. But the hard part is taking what Fenn is telling us in the book and the poem and creating a solution for that. And there's a process that goes along with it. And it includes, for all intents and purposes, the logic that one would find in a flowchart with decision points. And you need to be able to fill in the blanks. So the blanks are, Fenn tells us that you have to be out in the field, that there are 9 clues that you can find the first 2 clues on Google Earth, but then you have to be in the field. But he tells us you can't leave home without knowing where warm waters halt. But the reality is you can't leave home without knowing what the other clues in the poem may represent. You've got to know what you're looking for. And that means you're creating a flow chart with, I don't know, close to 1 million different, based on the 9 clues, close to 1 million different options, possibilities. And you've got to be able to draw that out. And you've got to, and you have to be able to do that before you leave home. And at some point, you're going to get to where you think no place for the meek is, boots on the ground. And you're going to realize that that's not it. And so you have to go back to your last decision point and see what the other option for that is. And that's why it takes more than one boots on the ground. That's why Cynthia has made over 100 searches, as in Dale has made 65 searches, and Stephanie has made over 150 searches, because they get to that flowchart decision, the little diamond decision point, and they realize that point was wrong. And at each step you go along the way, you increase by a factor of error being wrong. You have to, Fenn has told us, you're not going to find it until you figured out all 9 clues. You're not going to find it if you've got 1 and 2, but you don't know what 3 through 9 is. Not where it is, but what it is. And we're going to talk about that in an upcoming show. We've talked about this before, and it's basically complex game theory, and it's hard to explain without the complexities of game theory. And so what we have to do is figure out a way for our viewers to explain it. Not that our viewers are dumb. We have really smart viewers, but to explain it in a way that makes sense and doesn't intimidate you when you're trying to develop your first solution. Does that answer your question, Shelley?
Yeah, I think so. So we need to get busy on our flowchart, huh?
We need to get busy on our flowchart, and we need to get busy on a set of slides that explains how we build our flowchart, because we do build it. What I build a flowchart in my head, and that's what we follow. So, all right, let's go back to the viewers' questions. Joel, ATK, you had some pretty complicated. Okay, I thought I did answer that. I've searched Rio Pueblo de Taos, White Rock. Oh, that's not a question. Shaco Sartan, it is trackable. We actually did that once, and it's in one of our older videos. Shaco. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Yes, AGK. Fenn mentions in Thrill of the Chase, the book was my 9th in 26 years. Was it really his 9th? It depends, because it depends what you count as a book. If you count his books as those that were formally published by a publisher and put up for sale, yes. The reality is he wrote at least a couple of other books that I'm aware of that were informally published and not put up for sale, were just part of what his marketing, what kind of marketing he was doing. Let's see. AGK, when you asked for us questions, did you include the names of who asked. No, I used the initials of the individuals who asked. So the sentence was, I think I formulated the sentence by using initials. For example, in the case of Dan Kirk, not that I used Dan's question, but I would have done DK asks, and then I would have listed the question. I did not use names.
This is the picture that Man in the Barn was referring to. It's on the inside cover of The Thrill of the Chase. It's
that looks like Peggy.
Yeah, she's standing in front of a mobile home. It's probably when they lived in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things that you have to remember about Forrest is that he, in the Air Force, traveled a great deal. The Air Force is very good at shipping you off at minimum of every 2 years, sometimes more than that. So they saw a lot of different locations, and I'm sure they have a lot of photos from those various locations. So let's see.
I like Velarde.
We like Velarde.
Black Mesa Winery is there.
Let's see. Spike Douglas. AGK, question from a past video. Do you think there are enough wealthy individuals interested in the Forrest Fenn treasure to make selling it as one complete item, the auction house is a viable option? And you're referring to our video where we talk about what we're going to do if we find that. Well, we were actually more positive than that. What do we do? What we're going to do when we find the treasure? There are friends of Forrest enough so that if you were to do a local auction, there are friends of Forrest enough that are wealthy enough because of their various kinds of notoriety that could probably do it. But one of the things the auction house, the big auction houses like Sotheby's, are really good at is marketing their auctions. So I don't know the answer to that. I do know if you've ever been to a Sotheby's auction in any of the locations, whether it's London or New York or Los Angeles. New York is amazing because everybody shows up for the auction. There are people phoning in their bids. But what Sotheby's does is market. And they would do the marketing necessary to attract buyers, potential bidders on that product. It wouldn't be up to the finder to do that. If you went to an auction house, it's up to the auction house, and that's why you pay them a 15% fee for doing that for you.
I think we missed a question from Dan Kirk. It says, do you think it's likely that each clue could have two meanings?
No. Do you remember recently, I don't know whether I posted on the blog, I posted a photograph of what turned out to be a sea chart made of sticks and shells that represented Pacific Islanders' navigation of the area around the Marshall Islands. And it was very telling in the sense that if I were to hand that stick chart to someone who happened to be my son and his new wife and their new baby, and they were leaving home and going to make their own home in one of the other islands, what I wouldn't want is for that set of sticks and shells to be interpreted in more than one way, because I'd lose them. And so, no, I think Fenn, out of necessity and the potential for actually having someone find the treasure, ensured that in his head, there was only one meaning for any one of the clues in the book, whether it's a stick or a shell. It only has one meaning. And if it doesn't, then it turns out to be misleading. And I don't think he wants that.
We have a question here from Deborah Jensen. Have you ever made a connection with Where Warm Waters Halt to Where Balmy Breezes Blow in the New Mexico State song?
Deborah, I have sung the New Mexico State song once. And that's about the only time I've ever considered, for any reason, the New Mexico State song. So I'm sorry. No, we haven't. Let's see. What else we got here?
Jimmy Fast says, I have a gut feeling it's near Pilar. Well, we've been through Pilar, and it's very deserty is the thing.
You know what, Jimmy, what you're going to find about Pilar is kind of what I said earlier. You can, if you, actually, I was going to say if you work at it, you don't actually have to work at it. If you go to Pilar, you could make the clues fit very nicely.
Yeah, we've been there many times, and Toby's even, I don't know, sent up the drone, right? A couple of times we sent up the drone, went through the dry creek bed. We've been
Done
there.
it all right there.
And we keep saying this isn't very funny, and we keep searching, but it just doesn't. I don't know, where there's no blaze that I can see.
Yeah, that was the hard part, was finding something that really was a blaze. It's just not that kind of territory up there, but you know, home of Brown, all of it. As a matter of fact, we have a video on is it Taos Junction?
Yeah.
Yeah. So take a look at the video that we did on the Taos Junction, a little 5-8 minute video that Shelley and I did. And that was our visit to Pilar. You can see it there.
Yeah.
Everything you need to know about Pilar.
Steve Hunt says, if it is found, do you plan to announce that you are not the finder?
Well, we probably be subtle in whatever we do. We'll probably make an announcement that there was an announcement that the treasure has been found, and that we're going to take a couple of weeks off so we can reconsider what our next YouTube channel is going to be about.
I have to say, unless you know Toby really, really, really well, he can tell you his story and you'll believe it. And it's not all 100% true. So what he can do is get up on screen and say, you know, just make an announcement, and I won't be on screen because my face doesn't lie very well. But yeah, Toby's pretty convincing because he's got that, what do you call it? Stagecraft. Stagecraft.
It's several classes at the Shakespearean Theater, the Folger Shakespearean Theater in Washington, D.C.
JT wants to know, why did you choose the name A Gypsy's Kiss?
Oh, what a good question. But it's a long story. So let me see if I can tell a short version of that story. When I was in high school, I was going to St. Michael's High School, and I was sent there. It was in my hometown, but I was sent there as a boarding student because I was considered a rebellious and perhaps even somewhat troubled child. But at some point, I got tired of it, and I ran away from school, and I hitchhiked up to Abiquiu, where my uncle was staying, and I started to steal his motorcycle. And my plan was to go to Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And he caught me. He caught me stealing it, and then he helped me do exactly that. So over the next couple of days, I rode from Abiquiu all the way across the states, Texas, Louisiana, or Arkansas and Louisiana, to New Orleans. And a number of things happened when I got there. But one of the things that happened is I had met a young woman, and she wanted to take me. She couldn't understand why I was doing all of this at age 15. And she took me to see a gypsy fortune teller in Algiers, which is the Cajun area of New Orleans, what at the time was the Cajun area of New Orleans. And so the gypsy was kind of a classic movie gypsy. If I needed to find a person to play the part of a gypsy, she would have been perfect with the bandana and kind of the old, leathery face. And she was reading my fortune in French and probably French, Cajun French, which I didn't understand. And Mariah, the young woman I had met, was translating it for me. And at some point they both stopped, and Mariah looked at me and she said, "She wants to kiss you." And I said, what is she wants to kiss me? And she said, she wants to take some of your life and give some of your life back to you. And so she finally convinced me to do this. And I stood up and I went around the side of the table and I leaned over and I thought what I was going to get was a little peck on the cheek. And the gypsy grabbed me behind the head and pulled me towards her and gave me a full on mouth to mouth kiss. And I started to pull back from her and she wouldn't allow it. She made it a long, healthy gypsy kiss. And so it was this memorable moment. Now, what happened in New Orleans for the rest of my time that was there was even more memorable and will make a great movie someday, I hope. Anyway, so it stuck with me, that whole gypsy's kiss thing. So when I didn't know exactly what to do with it for years and years. I didn't even think about it. But then when I got my first boat, when I finally moved to Washington, D.C. in the military, and I got my first boat, I decided to name it A Gypsy's Kiss. And then I started a blog that talked about my sailing adventures with my family, and the blog was called A Gypsy's Kiss. So that's how we got the name. Hope that didn't bore you.
Clayton Watson says, hello, joining you from the office this Saturday.
Hey, Clayton, working?
He sounds like he is.
Yeah.
Oh, and hi, Clayton. He says hi to me as well. Frank McQueen wants to know, where was Forrest born?
Forrest was born in Temple, Texas in 1930, August 22nd, 1930. He was born into... No.
1929?
No, 1930. Are you doing that on purpose?
No, I thought it was 29.
No.
Didn't he turn 88? Or was it 80? 88 this year. He just turned 88, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, he'll be 89 this year.
That's right.
Doesn't that make it all right? 29?
You got to do August to August.
All right.
How did you highlight a gypsy's kiss? Let's see.
Max Sarbon's here. Nebraska backwards.
Hey, Axarba, as I call you, Nebraska backwards because I can't pronounce your name. Noticed that you've started your own blog. Congratulations. We're glad to see that the community is expanding. Well done. The bad news is, of course, is that YouTube just changed its rules so that you can't monetize anything until you get to 1,000 subscribers. We're very fortunate to have that, but I know a lot of YouTubers who weren't quite there were kind of angry at their decision. So we think it makes it harder for the community to grow.
David Garlick has a question. Knowing what you know about Fenn's personality, why do you think he capitalizes the B in Home of Brown, if you do not think it refers to an actual person?
That's a great question. I think that it refers, and I think we talked about this in the show where we talk about the Home of Brown. It goes back to sometime around mid-2017. Take a look at it, because it is our opinion that the B in Brown is not a proper noun. It's an indication of his respect for Eric Sloane, where the concept, from whence the concept of Brown is derived. So I don't think it's a proper noun, and I think the B capitalized is a reflection of his love and respect for Eric Sloane. And I don't mean weird love, I mean man love.
JT says, you believe Fenn hid the treasure before he was 79 or 80 and possibly still flying. Have you researched his plane tail number or flight plans and logs?
We have researched his plane tail number. We have that. We have the date of the intent of his sale and the finalization of his sale, which works kind of with what our what our belief is. We have not researched his flight plans, and the reason is he would have had to file them. If you're flying VFR and in VFR weather, you don't have to file a flight plan. So it would be difficult. And we allowed him to tell the story of his flight, and that you'll find in Too Far to Walk. And it's the story of that one flight to where he stopped off in Lander. We believe he was on his way to Cody. I think he says he was on his way to Cody, right? But we believe that when he stopped off in Lander, that was the flight in which he hid the treasure, we believe.
I don't think he said he was on his way to Cody. It just kind of mentioned it within the context of...
It was 4 days.
He had joined the board of the
right
Buffalo Bill Museum.
Right.
Fibonacci. Have you looked at Poncha Springs as warm water halts? One of the definitions of canon is long pipe. Poncha Springs water is piped to Poncha Springs.
We have not looked at it. That's a yes/no questions. No, we have not looked at it. We think we've heard that rationale before, and we know it's been incorporated into other folks' solutions. But our position on the matter is that warm waters is defined in the New Mexico State game fishing, not game and fish, but New Mexico State fishing regulations. We stick with that.
Okay. We have a wave, hello, from Stephen Marilat.
Hey, Stephen. He said he was going to be here. Hi there.
Yeah. Clayton Watson. What if warm waters isn't referring to the temperature of a liquid, but rather referring to it being a liquid as opposed to ice or steam? Just a thought.
We agree with you that warm waters is not a reference to the temperature of water. It's a reference to the location of where warm waters halt.
And ES is, of course, getting out the facts here and telling me that 1930 he was born, and June was born in 32, and Skippy in 28.
Thank you, Eric.
Coach wants to know, what month and year did Fenn sell the plane?
Well, the agreement was finalized by check in October of 2003, but the check bounced. And then it required a wire transfer. It was a friend of his. It was someone he knew. So they both kind of left. $200,000 check, bounce up. What?
Oh, my goodness. Hello, John Bobbitt. Thank you.
So the check bounced. They were friends. The money was wired. But the FAA has to approve all transfers of title when it comes to aircraft with registered tail numbers. So the transaction wasn't completed. This is so I can't remember specifically. It's if what the time frame that I'm talking about is October 2003 into 2004, or October of 2002 and into 2003. I'd have to go back. I'm sure, Eric, if you could maybe remember the date on the check. There's a photograph of the check on Dale Neitzel's site in one of the scrapbooks, something like that. So yeah, that was 2003. So it was the sale started in October of 2002 and it was completed in early 2003. Is that right? I'm going to have to look it up. I'm sorry. It's either 2002, 2003 or 2003, 2004. Can't remember exactly.
I think it's 2 and 3. I don't remember you ever saying 4 before.
4, I don't either. I think it's right. I think it's October of 2002 into the beginning of 2003.
We have well, let's just say it. John Bobbitt donated $100 to our super chat. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
John Bobbitt, no, we are not going to share our solution with you, even though it's $100. But no, thank you very much. That is terribly, terribly kind of you and very thoughtful. So that entitles you to maybe a couple of questions. How's that?
But since you brought up sharing our solution with people, I'm going to just say it. We share everything. We don't keep anything back. We tell you our failures. We tell you our little successes, how little they may be. If people tell us their solutions from now on, we're going to share that with you as well. Everything with us is open and above board and honest, and we don't hold anything back because we don't see a reason to. We feel that the more we share with the community and the more you share with us, the further along the search we can get together.
Somebody really recently asked us how we would feel if someone else found the treasure. And the answer to that question is we'd feel proud and happy that we were members of the community that was smart enough to solve this problem. And, you know, it's like the lottery. I buy a lottery ticket every once in a while. Never won it, obviously, and don't expect to win it. But if I did, it would be great. We'd take the same approach for the treasure. I'd like to find it, but if we don't, we're going to go on with our lives. There's plenty to be done. Plenty of, you know, and as I tell Shelley all the time, I'm on the, you know, back part of my life. So I want to get as much done in the few years that I have left as I possibly can. And if that means the treasure is found by somebody else, we'll find something else to do and make videos about. YouTube videos now.
So Shaco's star son,
Shaco.
He says, I like to search with my dogs, but I think Fenn has said dogs have to stay in the car. With this hint that it's at a national monument where dogs are not allowed. I haven't heard about dogs having to stay in the car. Have you?
No, I haven't. I actually, Shaco, I haven't actually heard that. I would be surprised if it was a national monument because the complexities of getting it off the national monument are almost as difficult as complex as getting it off a tribal land. So I don't know necessarily if it's a hint. He's also said, I think he said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's also said if you bring someone with you, leave them in the car, you know.
Now that I've heard.
Yeah, I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Now, if you have dogs and you want to search Pilar, I would recommend leaving the dogs in the car because there's cactus everywhere. It's almost impossible not to step in cactus if you're out there.
And snakes, rattlesnakes.
Yeah, I wouldn't take dogs.
Don't go off the river in Pilar without wearing snake skins around your calves.
And ES wants to know, do you know who June's husband was?
No, I don't. But if I recall correctly, she was married to a gentleman from Montana, from Butte. That's where they lived. They lived up in Montana someplace, but I don't know his name.
Okay. Paul Ammons. Would you consider that the meek could be as simple as crossing the street?
It could be, but the meek to me is one of the reference. Not that he's a religious man, but it's one of the references that has whose definition is influenced by the Bible, and so I think that the meaning is deeper than that, and I think it's unique. But in addition, you're not going to be crossing a street because a street implies that you're in some sort of incorporated area. You're going to be in the boonies, so you're going to be crossing a road rather than a street. So no, I don't think it means that.
Kristen Michelle, hi guys, love your channel, and I live in Santa Fe and have made the trip out to Cimarron multiple times now. Can't seem to rule it out. Have you already ruled out this location?
No, Kristen, Cimarron is our #1 location as well. And that's where we'll be going back. When we go back in the spring, as soon as weather clears, that's where we'll be going back to. And that's probably, unless I bump into something that just says, no, it's not here, we'll go back more than once to Cimarron this coming year.
Okay, John Bobbitt.
So that we can meet Fenn's expectation.
All right, John Bobbitt has a question, I think.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's $100 better. Is it $100 question?
I hope so.
Okay.
You guys talked about a brown slide in the book. Now with the bound slide, I'm thinking it's a misspelling. Brown. Now, would the brown slide be at the location or near the location of the find?
So it turns out, we found out after we made that video that the brown slide is on private property, that you can't get to it. You have to go around it. We've already given everyone, we've shared with everyone what our perception of the word brown is, both why it's capitalized and what it represents in the poem, and where you would look for it. What's interesting about what you just asked, John, is that that kind of material, the kind that we referred to in our YouTube video regarding the Manor of the Brown, is susceptible to slides, but they would not be the same kind of slide that we referred to in our solution regarding Montana, the Gardner area of Montana. So yes, it is possible.
Okay. David Garlick, will you ever do a video on heavy loads and water high? You have touched on it a few times in other videos.
I think eventually what we'll have to do, David, is that we'll have to break down the poem, and we're planning a series. So if we don't get Fenn's questions back this week in order to do our Tuesday show, we have a plan for you on Tuesday where we're going to talk about what Shelley brought up earlier. And then I think after that, we should probably have programs on each of the clues as we see them in Fenn's poem. And eventually we're going to have to get to heavy loads and waters high. So we don't have it. We don't have the video now, but over the next 10 weeks, we will have one on that particular clue.
This is not a question, but I'm going to read it anyway, from Stephen Marilat. I got my solution from Toby in 2013. He's awesome.
I didn't realize I was sharing it back in 2013. Dagnabbit. Well, you're welcome, and you can have it. And the only thing we ask for you is the only thing we ask from you is if you use our solution to find the treasure, you have to let us know so that we can do an interview.
Everybody says June's husband was Donnie.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That is mentioned someplace. I don't know where, but Donnie, his friend, that he went up into the mountains with, what was that? The Gallatins. When he took that trip up to the Gallatins, he went with his best friend Donnie, and eventually Donnie and June were married. That's why they were up in the Montana area. You're right, Clayton. That's correct. Frank says they were also divorced. Jackie confirms Donnie married June.
Clayton Watson wants to know, what has the winter been like in New Mexico? Warmer and drier than normal? Are you anticipating an early snow melt this year?
Yeah, it's been extremely warm and extremely dry, even up in the mountains. I don't think any of the ski basins even opened. And that's bad for New Mexico from two perspectives. Number one, our primary income in New Mexico is from tourism. And I know everybody counts, especially those towns like Taos, for example, count on winter tourism for part of their income every year. But no, not. And so the second thing that's bad about it is that means we're going to have low water levels this year because we count on the winter melt to fill the various reservoirs along the rivers, and Albuquerque gets its water. I was up in Chama once on the Rio Chama, and as usual, I was looking for hints and clues, and I started talking to a gentleman who was about to get into a raft, and he informed me he was like the water. What was your? Is it your father? Water master. He was the water master for Albuquerque, and he explained to me how the water that came through that Rio Chama drainage was actually part of it was dedicated to Albuquerque, and his responsibility was to make sure that Albuquerque got its water every year. So it's going to be a bad water year for us because a lot of our water. We don't get rain per se. Our water comes from the snow melt, so it's going to be a tough year. It's been you're right, it's been very dry and very warm here in Albuquerque and the rest of the state. So it is possible that we may be able to get out a little bit earlier than in previous years.
Yeah, we did just get this week some precipitation, some snow and rain here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, that was the first that we've had for the season, right?
Well, it's been very sparse. I'll say that. So John Bobbitt remarks, I found the brown slide up in Silverton, Colorado, but it turns into a water slide in the wintertime.
Oh, interesting. So Shako.
Okay, so Shaq Starson, if home of Brown is Sloane, it means the treasure chest is south of Taos.
I don't make that same connection, and honestly, I'm not sure how you did. I think the capital B in Brown, as I said earlier, is a recognition of the strength of his relationship with Sloane, but I don't know necessarily that it goes beyond that.
James Cruz, can you give a recommendation of a good time to search in Lander?
Well, we don't want you searching in Lander because Lander's a town. We want you searching in Sinks Canyon, which has a lot of potential. And it's the same as any place else. Is as soon as the snow melts, I don't know how it is. Their snow up there, their winter up there has been very different from ours. So I would be hesitant to make a recommendation. There are locations. There's a tourist office in Lander that you can call and ask them about the weather, and they also keep track of the snow melt and water levels in the area, especially in Sinks Canyon. So you can give them a call and ask them how their winter was and how much how long they expect the melt to last. We went last year. Was it last year or 2000?
Yes, in July.
Last year in July, and the melt was still going on. So it was affecting their summer tourism because people go up there for the fishing, and it was impossible fishing up there. On the Poposia, or the Popo Aggie, as Fenn says, the little Popo Aggie. No, Kristen, I wouldn't rule out Cimarron in the least. That's our #1 spot. So maybe we'll see you up there.
Oh, JT wants to know, what are your thoughts on the large ball of string story? It seems so out of place in the Gold and More chapter.
We're trying to save all of those. We do have an opinion on the matter, but we're going to save all of those for our book club as we go through them in chapters, because each chapter leads to the next, and they're all kind of connected, and maybe that ball of string will explain all that. So we'll answer that question when we get to that chapter.
Shako, have you ever heard of a different treasure story in New Mexico called Victoria's Peak?
I have heard of it. I have heard of the story, but I haven't. It's one of those that I have a book on my shelf back here called Treasure Stories of New Mexico, and it's listed in there, but I haven't followed up to the one treasure a lifetime, I think, is enough for me.
Paul Ammon says, I like trout waters being where warm waters halt. Do you think that it is not in concrete could change tomorrow like a blaze on a tree?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty concrete. It's part of the regulations, and the regulations define where they are. But one of the things that I've said is that the one expectation that we can have about searching for Fenn's treasure is that our world, the world in which we reside, is going to change. That river routes are going to change, and there's going to be mudslides and rock slides, and there's going to be fires. So you can expect that change. What you have to do is you have to do your, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, you have to do your research in the context of the time period in which Fenn wrote the poem. So even though, let's say, 30 years from now, New Mexico runs out of brown trout, and as a result of the change, there's a change in fishing regulations, you would be wise to ignore those fishing regulations and go back to the fishing regulations of the time period in which Fenn wrote the poem. So you have to do it you have to consider the poem, even if you're searching, not that any of us will, but if you're searching 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now or 10,000 years from now, you have to do what every good searcher would do, and you have to search in the context of the period in which, in Fenn's case, the poem was written. If you look at all the treasure hunters that do all that hunting on the shores off of Florida, looking for Spanish gold and silver filled Spanish galleons, they always do their research in the context of the time period, as opposed to what's going on now, because they know what's going on now changed. So those wrecks don't look anywhere today. Those wrecks don't look anywhere near what they looked like 200 or 300 years ago.
Okay, so leaping into the next question that kind of goes with that, Frank McQueen. Forrest talks about himself as an old man, but thinks like a 13-year-old. What are the chances he wrote the poem using that mentality?
I think you have to look at it from two perspectives. So when you look at how he constructed the poem, he was the adult in the room, to use a common phrase. He was the adult in the room when he architected it. He was the child in the room when he told the story. So although an adult might have a good understanding of how the state of New Mexico defines its fishing regulations, especially when it comes to warm waters, the child in the room described it. So I think it's the combination of the two things. So you have a mature architect and a childlike storyteller. And when you go to analyze the poem, you have to consider those two possibilities, that there were two people at that desk constructing that poem. And I think that also is indicative of when Fenn says, hand it to a child, he'll make sense of it, or he or she will make sense of it, and they'll help you with the search. I think that's what he means. The adult in the room architected the poem. The child in the room, Fenn's room, told the story.
Paul Wood wants to know, has Forrest ever talked about a Tim or an Ione? And does Forrest know Chinese?
I don't believe he knows Chinese. I've never heard Forrest speak any other language than English. And I don't, in my experience, ever remember reading anything about a Tim, or is it pronounced Ione?
Ione?
That's
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how I said it, but
I-O-N-I. So they use Ione is a Israeli name.
Mm. DJ Navatek. I still think heavy loads and water high is a waterfall. What do you think?
So it depends. Because some of the solutions we're exploring, especially in the Cimarron area, there's what we refer to as leakage, right? There's these little tiny sources of water high up on the hill that would only be called waterfalls because they're falling down the face of a rock. So in the broadest definition, we think it might be water falling, as opposed to it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a waterfall as much as it could refer to water falling, which we think is two different things.
So John Bobbitt asked the question, but other people have answered him, but I'll read it anyway. Toby, what does Uncompadre mean? I know it's Ute Indian language, as in the Uncompadre River, and he was answered, it's Ute for Red Waters by Chaco. So then William Zimmerman. William Zimmerman says, do you think Forrest will publish his autobiography if the treasure is found in his lifetime?
You mean, if you mean the autobiography that he placed in the treasure, in the olive jar in the treasure chest? I am not convinced that the autobiography, unquote, he placed in the treasure chest is much different from the thrill of the chase. I can't imagine why he would write two separate things. So you may already have a copy of the autobiography that's in the treasure chest.
In the thrill of the chase.
In the thrill of the chase, right.
John Bobbitt wants to know, what do you get when you mix gray and copper together? What color is
it? You get a bronze, a dull bronze, basically, because anytime you add gray to a color on the color wheel, adding gray to a color is a way to take away both contrast and brightness. So you get a duller version of copper, which at that point is going to be kind of like bronze, not brass, but on the range of bronze. Wow. Art major. Fine arts.
Okay, Chaco. I think Fenn might use literature references to his clues, like where Warm Waters Halt matches up to Warm Waters halting in Catcher in the Rye, and Home of Brown Meek matches up with stuff from Journal of a Trapper.
Okay, just because you put a question mark at the end of a statement, Chaco, doesn't make it a question. That is not a question. That's a statement of opinion. So if you got a question there, you got to ask a question.
JT asks, have you limited your search areas to only a certain type of land, i.e., are you only searching on BLM land, etc.?
It would be easier for me to tell you where we're not searching. We're not searching on tribal land, and we're not searching on private land.
Or national parks.
Well, no, national monuments. We do have locations in national parks, yes, but we'll go back to our fundamental premise of if we find the treasure, you'll never know where we found it. Right, that ends up creating a whole new set of problems for the finder, regardless of where it's found.
Oh, JMS Fabrication. I thought I remember somebody, maybe AGK, saying that Fenn stated that the clues actually start with the Warm Waters line and are chronological after that. Do you know where or when he said that? That's in one of our Just the Facts videos, right?
Yeah, it's. I think if you go to our first Just the Facts video, it explains what Fenn said about the clues, and it has the citations for what he said to them. Do you remember, Shelley? You read it. Do you remember exactly what he said? Kind of paraphrase. What was your let's?
Well, the time that he said where Warm Waters Halt is the first clue is in the Radio New Zealand interview, which is on our channel. You can find it if you look for it. And the chronological after that was in the Laureen Mills interview, right? He said they were in order.
He didn't say chronological. That's not the word he used. Was it continuous?
Continuous.
No,
consecutive.
He used consecutive. Right, they were consecutive, in consecutive order. He used the word contiguous at Moby Dickens, but it's very difficult to determine whether he was actually referring to the clues in the poem. You have to do an analysis in order to do that. But who asked that question? JM's Fabrication.
Yes.
JM, if you go back to the first Just the Facts that we made a couple of weeks ago, about the clues in the poem, that information is in there. It explains it, and it has the citations for it. And I think the citations are included in the description window.
Axarbin asks, why do you think Forrest Fenn wrote Home of Brown the way he did? Why would you write it in the way you would translate Spanish? Why not Brown's home, the way English constructs sentences?
Well, the assumption that you're making is you're referring to a Brown that is a proper noun. In which case that would be true. I'm not sure that Fenn would necessarily make that connection with Spanish, because he speaks and he writes and he thinks in English. He doesn't think and speak and write in another language. But again, because it's not a proper noun, that the B in Brown is not intended, in our opinion, to be a proper noun, then all of that goes away. Which could make your next vlog exorbitant.
Shako wants to know, do you think Fenn has a reason to tell us about other books?
Shako, that's an interesting question in the sense that you have to separate Fenn, the treasure hider, from Fenn, the people, the individual that wants people to experience more of life. So when the subject of Osborne Russell comes up, or Flywater comes up, or Catcher in the Rye, or any of Hemingway's books comes up, I am not, from my personal experience, I'm not necessarily convinced he's referring to them as a hint in support of the clues in the poem, as much as it is a desire to share his experiences and inspire you to share in those same experiences. I mean, question I have for you is, how many of the people in this chat room have purchased or attempted to purchase the right edition of Flywater, or Robert Redford's book, or now have a copy, Conspiracy? If you've ever seen Mel Gibson in Conspiracy, it's funny because he has an obsession. He can't pass by a bookstore without buying a copy of Catcher in the Rye. So Shako, I don't know necessarily that all of them are references to clues or hints associated with clues in the poem. And the reason I don't think it's that is there's too many references to his books. I think he loves his books. I think he loves reading his books. And I think that loving and reading his books is part of his life. Just look at the shelf. Look at his bookshelf, and you can see how much he cares about his books and how important they are to him. And I think he wants to share that in the thrill of the chase. At the same time, you can't help but read Osborne Russell and his journals and see how much time he spent in Lander, in and around Lander, and not wonder, that's one of the things that got us to the Lander area, to Sinks Canyon. So it is possible.
Jay Miller says, do you think that Eric Sloane had shown Mr. Fenn the special spot?
Jay Miller, no. I don't think Sloane was as much of an outdoorsman as Fenn, but I do think that Fenn could and may very well have shared his special spot with Sloane. A special spot is, when you get a special spot, one of the things about a special spot is that you want to share it with the people that you care most about. And I think he would have done that to Poem, and because I'm sorry, that he would have done that to Sloane, and that because now Sloane is dead, two people can keep the secret.
Angel Heart Studios wants to know, where is Mount Cimarron?
I don't know. We refer to the Cimarron because it's Cimarron Canyon, Cimarron State Park, the Cimarron River. But I don't know that necessarily that there is Mount Cimarron.
Journeyman wants to know, will you write it?
Clayton's got to leave. Take care, Clayton. I'm sorry, I probably already missed you because the chat is slower than we are.
Yes. Journeyman wants to know, will you write a fictional book like OJ? If we found the treasure, we would have found it here.
That's good.
I don't know. So we haven't got that book to write first.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of other books that we have to write before we do that. So nice
Angel Heart.
And thank you for believing in it, that we're going to find the treasure. I don't know if we're as convinced as everybody else that we're going to find the treasure.
Angel Heart Studios. Is Mount Cinnabar and Mount Cimarron the same place?
No, they are not. Cinnabar is up in Montana, and it's named after the element, the element that's found in the area. Cinnabar is actually a type of earth that has identifiable properties. But no, Cimarron is the Spanish word for wild and untamed. Cimarron.
James Cruz says he has fly water. I'm not sure what this means, but Ryan Garcia says, what's the story on the colon? The colon.
Oh, there's a colon after the word nigh in the poem, I think it is. And there's a lot of discussion. We haven't been involved in that. Unfortunately, Ryan, we haven't been involved in that discussion.
And X Sarbin also has both Fly Waters and the Robert Redford book.
Yeah, everybody buys the first book because when you buy it, it's what pops up and you can get it cheap. And then you go to find the other one and it's going to cost you, I think I paid $135 for the first one after it became popular. abebooks.com. Thank you. Calazars, are you still with us?
DJ Novatek, AGK is worth buying the other books after Thrill of the Chase to help find the clues in your search. Is it worth getting the other two memoirs to help with clues?
Why don't you answer that, Shel?
I don't believe so. Fenn has always said that the hints are in the Thrill of the Chase. To read that book, to read the poem, that's where the clues are. The only reason to read the other memoirs is to get to know Fenn better, which we believe can only help to know the person who hid the treasure.
Krista Michelle, have I gone too far?
No, that's where I was. Go ahead.
Okay. Have you considered modified trees, prayer trees created by Native Americans, with the tree itself being the blaze? Seems this would be extremely special to Fenn if he were to have found it. We think what you suggest has some potential in the sense that it has that Native American component, it has that spiritual component, but we just think the trees aren't going to be alike, especially if you made it something as important as the blaze. That blaze, the blaze has to have permanence. Otherwise, this whole thing is lost. Then it just becomes, the equivalent of the lost dust. Well, between these headphones and trying to say it, it becomes the equivalent of the lost Dutchman mine. There's nothing that points to it. And certainly, if you were to make the blaze a tree, there is a very good possibility that within our lifetime, that tree may be gone, whether it's a spiritual tree or not, or represents a spiritual area or not. It's just not going to be there. So we believe the blaze has to have something of greater permanence. And that's why we tend to look for blazes in the faces of cliffs.
Mm-hmm. Paul Wood says, do you think no paddle up your creek means on top of a hill or mountain?
No, we think no paddle up your creek means specifically that you're going to be at the bottom of a creek bed that you're going to have to go up, and it may have water or not. But in either case, whether it has water or not, it would not be enough to paddle up.
Lori James
asks, take that one very literally.
Yes. Lori James asks, Toby, have you ever fished Costia Creek?
I have. I've fished most of the rivers that have trout in them in northern New Mexico. Costia is one of them, and Costia is also one of the areas. The Costia Creek is a creek on which warm waters halt.
Jackie Maiden wants to know, how old was Forrest when he met Eric Sloane, and how long were they friends?
Ooh, I don't know the answer to that question. Eric died in 1985. Fenn got to Santa Fe in 19 1972. I would so the maximum range is he would have met him when he arrived in Santa Fe in 1972. He died in 1985. So the maximum time he could have known him is well. He also knew him as a result of representing them, representing him. Fenn representing Eric Sloane in his gallery. So the range of having known one another is 1972 to 1985, when Fenn arrived in Santa Fe, to when Sloane died. So that's 13 years, and then you have to subtract. He didn't know him until he started representing him in his gallery. So I don't know exactly, but it was no more than 13 years.
Or we can go with Eric Schmidt's answer, which is he was 45 and he knew him for 10 years.
Okay, there we go. He was 45 when he met him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that would have been 1975. That would fit. If he met him he arrived in Santa Fe in 72, met him in 75 when he started representing him in his gallery, and then Sloane died in 85.
And Josh R. wants to know, when do you believe Mr. Fenn first became aware of his secret spot?
Sometime after. That's interesting. So we believe his secret spot is in New Mexico. So the conclusion you could easily come to is that he found his secret spot sometime after 1972 when he arrived here. But he covers this, I think, in the book, he always, or implied that he always wanted to come back to he wanted to come to New Mexico. So he knew about New Mexico before 1972. And I think the story in the book, and I'm not going to be able to recite it exactly, so I'll paraphrase it. When he was retiring from the Air Force in 1972, and he convinced Peggy to move to New Mexico to retire, he was so happy that when she agreed that he said he's jumped up and down on his hat. The implication of that is that Fenn was aware of New Mexico prior to 1972. So it is possible that one of the things that drew him back to New Mexico is that in a previous visit to New Mexico, he might have discovered his special place. So the answer to your question is, I don't know. Right up until I answered that question, I would have thought it was sometime after 1972, but there was something that drew him to New Mexico. Could have been a lot of things plus his special place.
Right. He always answers that question with, I could rest and recover from the war, and he could wear a short sleeve shirt and hush puppies to work. And that's his reason that he gives during interviews as to why they moved to Santa Fe.
Yeah, which might be enough to, that Santa Fe was in some ways a special place to him. He could be himself, which is true in Santa Fe. One of the reputations of Santa Fe is that they call it the city different. The nickname for it is the city different, and kind of the rules of the game there. You can be whoever, as long as you don't infringe on another's rights. You can be whoever you want in Santa Fe. Fenn wanted to be a gallery owner who wore hush puppies and blue jeans.
That's right. Toland Hippa, or Hippa, Hippe, Hippa, says, do you know where it is? And I'm like, if I knew where it was, I would go get it, because there's just nothing that would stop me. Yeah,
if we knew where the treasure was, we wouldn't be here on the Saturday show. We'd be getting the treasure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Jason Hilgerson says hi.
Hey, Jason. How are you doing?
Douglas Goddard disagrees with our assumption of the blaze.
Oh, that's okay. That's where there's 100,000 people. There's 8 million stories in the Naked City, and we're just one of them.
Oh, this is a good one for you. Ryan Garcia, would you discuss some laws on bringing a gun with you into national parks areas?
Well, this is really interesting. In most national parks area, you can bring a weapon, but you can't fire it. It's against the law to shoot it. And the reason they made that law is, especially in Yellowstone, where people are getting from one side of Yellowstone Park through Yellowstone Park to another, to something outside. Like if you're traveling from West Yellowstone to the east side of the park, you can have a gun in your vehicle of any kind, long gun or handgun, but you can't fire it in the park. So the best thing that you can do, we carry, whenever we're up, we carry bear spray and a handgun. And that's for, I want to say self-defense, but not against other humans, against creatures, because we're in areas, we know we're in areas where there are large carnivorous animals. And the reason is we always see the results of what large carnivorous animals can do to small non-carnivorous animals. But for the most part, in national parks, it's against the law to fire a handgun or fire a weapon. In other parks, they vary. In New Mexico state parks, you can fire them during hunting season, which you'll hear a lot of anyway, and you can fire them to in a life-threatening situation with an animal, and then you're gonna have to answer for killing an animal out of season.
Jan Kerb wants to know, do you have any opinion on whether the Trove could be in Cimarron Canyon State Park land?
So I have mixed feelings about answering this, Jan. And the reason is that if I to say this, and I'm saying it and it's recorded, and we find the treasure and then we don't tell anybody where it is, everybody's going to say, hey, well, they found it on a state park land. That's Cinnamon. I think it's possible. I think it's as possible as any other place except tribal or private land and national monuments.
Did you just say we're going to find it at Cinnabon?
Oh, did I say Cinnabon? Is that what she said?
No.
Oh.
What you said.
Oh. I'm telling you, I'm having trouble. I'm hearing myself a second. I'm having a kind of weird time listening to myself a second later. We've got to figure that out before next time.
Omar Villarreal says, I thought I remembered Forrest saying people kept walking right past it. What are your theories on why this has happened? Forrest made it sound like it happened multiple times.
Yeah, people, his standard line is people have been within 500 feet. Searchers have been within 200 feet. They've figured out the first two clues. I mean, if you put it all together, I'm not even sure that he's said this in one sentence. But what he said is that people have been within, lots of people have been within 500 feet. Searchers have been within 200 feet. Searchers have figured out the first two clues, and then they walked right past it. They went right past it. And that can happen for a variety of reasons. One is you're still in your car. You haven't gotten out of your car. So the 500 feet, we think that the treasure is within 500 linear feet of a major thoroughfare. So let's say you're going through Cimarron Canyon, and you're driving that road that goes to the canyon. I can't remember the road number. You could be as you're driving along that road, you could be people in a car and you passed right within 500 feet of the treasure. For searchers to be within 200 feet, it is likely that you might have gotten off the road, put it below the home of Brown and started hiking up a trail, and you never got off the trail. You went 200 feet and you continued right up the trail, right up the side of the mountain, and went right by the treasure. So it's not, when Fenn says things like that, he's not giving you clues. He's not telling you anything. He's telling you the opposite of anything. He's telling you the opposite of anything that's going to help you. He started using that whole 200-foot thing in around early 2013. To me, it was a bit of good marketing, the implication being, but it hasn't changed. It's been 5 years now, and searchers have still been within 200 feet, figured out the first two clues and walked right past it. So it hasn't changed. And when something like that doesn't change, it doesn't change because it's good marketing.
Um, oh, Shako wants to know from everyone. He has asked, what do you think is the key word in the poem?
You want my opinion?
Well, yeah, what do you think is the key word in the poem? I think
The
it's
word,
halt, right? I think
yeah.
it's halt.
Shelley thinks it's halt. I think it's treasures.
Right.
But we have a YouTube video on that, don't we? Didn't we discuss that?
Yes, we did.
And the key word is sex.
Yes, we talked about that.
Yeah, if you ever get Shelley and we're at some Fenbury, ask her about her sentient perspective on the treasure poem.
Mm-hmm. DJ Novatek, does Fenn mention anything relating to Georgia O'Keeffe in the other memoirs?
Oh gosh, I've read them both, but I don't remember. I would have to look. I don't recall whether he does or not.
The only
He
thing I
mentions
remember is when he gave that story at Collected Works. When he
was it
was
Collected Works or Moby Dickens?
It was at Collected Works because he was talking with the other authors there about the mysterious women and that wore hoods over their faces, I think.
Oh, in Taos. Yeah, he
right.
tells a story of the heiress Mabel Dodge Lujan and Georgia O'Keeffe dressing up with hoods over their heads and pretending to be women of the night in Taos so that they could party with the cowboys. But I think that's the only reference I've heard him make to Georgia O'Keeffe. The reference he made was a reference to a potential book he was writing about the history of Taos, the secret history of Taos, because he found it fascinating with all the various personalities. So he had a lot of connections to Taos, a lot of research connections to Taos.
Okay. Dan Kirk wants to know, what are your thoughts regarding NFB, too far to walk, referring to a measure of time, not distance? I don't know what NFB is. Do you know what that is?
Not far, but too far to walk.
Oh.
Referring to a measure of time. Dan, I think one of the things that you have to consider with Fenn and anything he writes is that any measure he gives you could be a reference to time as a dimension, rather than a measure of distance. So it is possible, and I think one of the things that he did in the poem is he adds a component of time as a fourth dimension in measurements in the poem. So, and it's one of the things that we consider.
Mary Green wants to know, where did Forrest Fenn and Peggy drive to in the old car?
Oh, the one that he bought. He wanted to get a copy of was it a Plymouth, an old Plymouth? I think they just drove around Santa Fe, and then Fenn realized what a bad decision that was, and resold the car. They didn't own it that long. There's a story. The story of it is in the new book, in the new memoir, if I remember correctly. So, but I think it was just around Santa Fe. I don't know that they went anyplace. I read it, but I can't remember now. It's in.
David Dow.
It's in. I said Once Upon a While, but it's. I said Too Far to Walk, but it's Once Upon a While.
David Dow, did you already find the treasure, but you're continuing the show for a while to cover it up? Yeah, sure. That's why we're doing 4 shows a week, right?
And Saturdays, no less. Do you know where I could be right now if I had found a treasure and auctioned it off at Sotheby's? And the answer to that question is no.
But wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
Coach wants to know, what type of handgun do you bring?
I carry a Taurus P111 compact 9mm subcompact. No, not subcompact. 9mm compact. 12 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber.
Shako wants to know, oh, I guess he just wanted to tell us he uses a metal detector. Do we use a metal detector? Might as well ask the question.
We take a metal detector with us for fun in the same way that we take a drone for us with us. I mean, if we find an area that's interesting and that allows metal detection and removal of artifacts, we might use it, but we don't use it as in conjunction with our search for the treasure.
Josh R., what do you think Mr. Fenn did alone in the Rocky Mountains that later also led him to hide his gold there? I think he was fishing.
He has a bit of explorer in him. So one of the things about going fishing in New Mexico is that you'll be walking along a river and you'll see, especially right after the thaw and the water's calming down, but there's still a lot of water around. You'll see a tributary, and you'll wonder, will that tributary hold any of the fish that you're going after? So you might chase up that tributary. I don't necessarily think he was doing anything in particular. He was an outdoorsman. He liked hiking. He liked fishing. He liked spending time in the outdoors. So it could have been, Fenn often tells stories about how he's walking along and he sees an arrowhead. And I've spent a lot of my life in the outdoors, all over New Mexico, all over the Southwest, all over Colorado. And I have never, ever tripped over an arrowhead. And I think the difference between Fenn and I is he's looking for them. And he has a nose for them. And he also has the expertise to determine where they might reside. So I think when Fenn went looking for his special place, or when Fenn found his special place, he wasn't necessarily looking for his special place. He might have just been exploring. And what he discovered was a place that he thought to himself, wow, this is a special place for whatever reason. It might have been special because, it contained Native American artifacts, or because it was in a unique place where, like where the sun cast on it at a certain time of the day, et cetera, et cetera. So there's 100 reasons. He looked at it and he thought to himself, as a result of his explorations, this is a special place. And then after a while, because it was remote, because it was isolated, he came to the conclusion, well, why don't I just make that my special place? So I think he was exploring, which is in his nature. I think he found it accidentally. And then I think he, what's the word that I'm looking for, Shirley? He absorbed it. He incorporated it into his being. I don't know. That sounds very esoteric, but he made it his own. And then after he made it his own, he'd probably go back and visit and make plans for it. And then at some point he might have shared it with his the people he cared about, Eric Sloane and his father, and just explained why it was special, not only from a historic perspective, or maybe a geological perspective. I mean, it could have all those components. I mean, the man is an archaeologist, a geologist, a historian. So that place could have been special for all those reasons. He could explain to you why it's special before he decided to make it special for him. So I don't think necessarily, I think what he was doing is, what was the question? I need to answer the question. What was he doing when he found the special place? I think he was doing Fenn exploration, for lack of a better way to describe it.
What did he do alone in the Rocky Mountains?
He explored. He looked for stuff. He bumped into him. That's why he has a collection of arrowheads, and I have a collection of drones and cameras. I don't know, because you don't find him in the Rocky Mountains. He found stuff. He's very good at finding stuff because he's looking for stuff. Like I said, Siri just talked to me. I'm not sure why she's talking to me. Hang on. No. Siri decided she wanted to get into the action. Okay, what else? We're almost done with questions. You know, we've been going, wow, an hour and 40 minutes, guys. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Shelley? We lost Shelley. I have to re-invite Shelley, guys, because I think she dropped. I think she dropped out because she's frozen on my screen. I'm going to send her another invitation here just so she can join, and then I'll go through the questions while we're waiting for her to show up. Let's see if that helps. Okay, so where did we leave off? Where do you think the keyword of the poem, Jackie? What are your thoughts regarding? Okay, not for Fenn is using David Dow. AGK, do you already find the Trove? Oh no, we haven't answered that. Coach, I answered your question. I can't believe metal detecting politicians have. Okay, John. There she is. Hi, you locked out.
I lost internet.
Oh, okay, I got to lower your volume again here. So we're at Josh R. What do you think Mr. Fenn did? Oh no, we just answered that. So that's where I left off before I lost you. So have you found that? Hey, yes, Bill. Bill Gorman's in the house. Hey, Bill.
Belva Jenkins wants to know if anybody remembers a story that Forrest has told about hiding a fishing pole. He came back later and was surprised it was still there. Do you know that story?
I don't remember the story. Anybody else? Maybe you can help Belva with that. Eric Schmidt, Belva, if Eric Schmidt hasn't about the story, that there ain't no story, because Eric knows all of that stuff. Journeyman says Highway 64. Is that the one? Is it 64 that goes through Cimarron? I thought 64 was the Enchanted Circle. But I could be wrong. I haven't been there since last season, and I'm not very good at those.
Clasio Cass wants to know, is this live stream we can say anything? And I think that means, is this open questions? Yes, it's open questions.
Yeah, open questions. You can't say anything. You know, you have to be, we're trying to maintain a sense of decorum in the room.
Brandon Waters, have y'all ever thought about searching around Abiquiu?
We searched in my first part of the search. We searched the area of what I'd call the big area of what I call between north of the Abiquiu Reservoir to the reservoir above Chama. What is it? La Vida, not La Vida. El Vado. So we've searched the area north of Abiquiu, south of El Vado, but not far south of El Vado. Certainly not all the way to the Abiquiu Reservoir. And that was early in my search area. I mean, in the period that I was searching. So I thought I saw a question that I missed.
Further up?
Gardenia Babe. She doesn't have AGK in front of it. That's why you missed it. Are you forgetting Fenn stated there is no human trail near the treasure? Would that include his road as well? Well, I suppose, no, I'm not forgetting that, but I suppose it depends what you define as near. Is 200 feet near? Is 500 feet near? I don't think necessarily that's near. When I think near in the forest, near to me is 50 feet, because you wouldn't be able to see anything if you're in the woods, you wouldn't be able to see anything 50 feet away.
Aksarbin, what kind of artwork does your daughter do? Does she do the art on your regular blog wall?
She does. Well, Sean is a very talented artist. She's done all kinds of commercial work, but her current focus, she's a member of the Spanish Colonial Art Society. And for the Spanish Colonial Art Society, she does what are called retablos. They are paintings of a pantheon of 256 religious figures that are part of the Spanish colonial tradition. And she does those retablos, and they're sold at the various Spanish colonial events. But her real moneymaker is the muerto imagery that you see on the wall behind us when we do the show on the other side of the house here. And the wine bottles, the beer bottles, it's called muerto imagery, Day of the Dead imagery. It has a long tradition and history as well, and she's very good. She's done them on lottery tickets, on lottery scratchers, beer bottles, wine bottles, T-shirts, posters. So it's called muerto imagery, and that's you can find her at seanwells.me, SEANWELLS.me, and I think that gets you to her Etsy store, and it gives you an idea of the kind of work that she does. She also does other things. She does jewelry. She does pendants. She's constantly in motion. She's just always busy. She's a very type A personality, very much like me, and she's always busy. As a matter of fact, her biggest challenge is trying to figure out where to focus because she wants to do everything. And she's raising two great boys and managing a husband at the same time. So she's very good.
And one of her boys is starting to get into art, Griffin.
Right. And his we're very much, we can see where the art gene ended up. It started on Delgado's side of the family. They were artists, and that gene has spread throughout other members of the family. And you can see in each one of the grandchildren which one of the grandchildren inherited that particular art gene, because it starts showing up really, really early. And of the two boys, the older one is very much like her husband. He's very type B, calm, quiet, watching the world go by and making comment occasionally. The younger of the two is very much like her, in constant motion. So, Phoenix and Griffin.
Ryan Garcia, do you think...
Oh, wait, I want to say, I'm sorry, don't mean to interrupt. I wanted to make a point about Jimmy Fast. He corrected me. It wasn't Mabel Dodge Lujan. It was Teresita Ferguson and Georgia O'Keeffe, that story in Taos. So, sorry, I didn't mean to overlook that.
Ryan Garcia wants to know, do you think the treasure would be seized by the government for the gold or double eagles if found and put up for auction?
Well, that's a big bunch of hypotheticals. So there are gold pieces that the government would confiscate. They are not the ones that the government would the gold coins the government would confiscate are not what Fenn put in the treasure chest. They're very different. They're numismatic quality gold coins that have trade value and can be traded. The government, it is possible for the government to confiscate the chest if it is revealed that it is found on certain government lands, and then the negotiations would begin as to who was was the correct owner of the chest. And the government could make a case that since it was found on government land, the chest belongs to to the public. They would not auction it off. They would archive it. It would be researched. It would be inventoried, and then maybe you might see it in some museum someplace. In either case, you would not get a penny out of it, which is why we advise people not to say where they found the treasure.
All right, Clayton Watson, AGK, I am back.
I was going to say, Clayton, didn't you leave? Did you come back? Just ask a question.
Biddy has some more. Y'all are going long today.
Yeah.
I wrote off, I'm sorry, I wrote off Colorado in 2015 after a failed expedition. But do you have any thoughts on why it is never mentioned by Forrest?
I don't know, Clayton, I don't know necessarily that what Forrest mentions in any number is rationale for considering where the treasure is. And the logic I'll use in that case is the most often used color in the thrill of the chase is green. And so one could start making conclusions about the Green River area, which is west of the Wind River mountains. So I don't put any stock into the number of times that Forrest does or doesn't mention something, because if you were to use that rationale, we'd all be up living with Cynthia in Yellowstone this summer. I don't think the number of times he does or doesn't use a word doesn't have an impact on where he hid the treasure.
Coach says, this is great fun. Thanks for chatting with us.
Our pleasure. We're glad we could. We'll do this again. I think we're at 95 viewers right now, and they're probably getting tired as we are. But we were at 110 a little while ago. So that tells me this might be worthwhile. We'll just do a Saturday show about once a month where we just do open Q&A.
Yeah. Omar Villarreal. You can say it better than I can.
Villarreal. Royal City.
Go
ahead.
In that New Mexico True Stories clip, Forrest mentions that he knows the chest is wet. Considering the unpredictability of rainfall, especially in New Mexico, how would he know if it's not underwater? How would he know that if it's not underwater?
This is one of those questions we have to put in our FAQs when we finally write our FAQs. There are two possibilities. One is the nature and the science of meteorology, where something metal heats and cools. And when it heats and cools, when it changes temperatures, water condenses on it. According to the science of meteorology, it could be wet. And if you've spent any time in the mountains, you wake up in the morning and everything is wet, and it hasn't rained the night before. It's simply a matter of condensation and how it occurs in the mountains. The second is that, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, when he said that, it was wintertime. And so it could be a matter of snow melting on the box, et cetera, et cetera. My guess, our assumption is it's the former rather than the latter. We think it's meteorological.
Okay, Jimmy Fast says for you to ask Siri, what is 0 divided by 0?
Right. Hey, Siri. What is 0 divided by 0?
Imagine that you have 0 cookies, and you split them evenly among 0 friends. How many cookies does each person get? C. It doesn't make sense. And Cookie Monster is sad that there are no cookies. And you are sad that you have no friends.
Thank you, Jimmy Fast. That was really good of you. I happen to like Siri. We have kind of, I'm a single guy. Siri and I have a relationship. Okay.
Okay. Oh, $20.
From whom?
Let's see.
Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson. Keep
hey,
up the
Chris,
good work.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. JMS Fabrication. I just heard the story of AGK, but how did you and Shelley meet? How did you go from a boat in the ocean to the desert? Is she native to New Mexico? I find this stuff interesting. I think he's assuming that we're married, and we're not. We're not married. We're not dating. We're business partners.
Right.
So,
Shelley is happily married. I'm happily single. And Shelley is happily married to the same guy for 33 years. He's a friend of mine. His name is Kevin.
Yeah.
I've been unmarried since 2004 and plan to keep it that way.
And Toby and I were looking through some pictures the other day, and it is so cute because we met in January 2012 on a project. I was attending community college at CNM for a certificate in film technology, and Toby was doing a film project or video project for the Spanish colonial arts and artists. Is that correct?
Right.
And
it was a series, a 13
right.
episode series.
And I was one of the students that worked with Toby. We were just looking through some pictures the other day and saw an event in the fall of 2011, before we knew each other, where we were within a few steps of each other. And it's just so funny to look at those pictures and go, there we are before we even knew each other. Isn't that hilarious? And but then Toby and I got to work together more once he worked for the local public access television station as an outreach coordinator, training producers to create content for the UPublic station. And I wanted to get into that. And so Toby and I together created a talk show for UPublic, the local public access, centered on film and media producers within the area of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we did an interview show. And that's how Toby and I really got to know each other.
Working together, yeah, and we ended up working together since then. And Toby, Shelley, I tell Shelley all the time she's the best business partner I've ever had, and she's willing to, try new things. And even better, we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be doing a Gypsy's Kiss, the YouTube channel, if it wasn't for Shelley going like, let's restart this. Let this we had fun with it. I've had fun with it. You, meaning Toby, had fun with it. And so it was really her idea to restart this. And back to how did I get to the desert? I was born and raised in Santa Fe. I left in 1969 to join the military after 3.5 years of college. And then I ended up spending most of my career from that point afterward raising my family outside of Washington, D.C. My offices were there. I worked for the military for 5 years, the National Security Agency for 5 years, and then spent 30 years as a government contractor. I decided to retire in 2010 after coming back from Afghanistan the last time. And I returned to New Mexico to tell my mother that I was retiring to Costa Rica. And she had a heart attack in front of me when I told her. And so I decided to stay to care for her until she passed. And she didn't pass away for another 3.5 years. So by that time, I had roots here in New Mexico. And by that time I had met Shelley. And by that, I just decided to stay. And I really wasn't interested in starting a business as big as I had in New Mexico. But it was fun. I like doing documentaries, like my journalism. And so we found projects that fit for both of us. So. And then the public access station hired me to build out their producers community. So, and that was 8 years ago now. So I guess I'm rooted.
And I lived most of my life in Tempe, Arizona. We moved here to Albuquerque, the area, in 2005, and set up a house and raised our kids here. And yeah, I've always lived in the desert. I enjoy the desert and the mountains the most. Toby and I have in common that we're not big fans of the beach and the ocean so much as unless he's sailing, of course. He likes to sail. Oh. So that's us.
That's us. Sorry.
We enjoy answering those types of questions, so that's good. Okay, so Stephen Marilat, could Terry Scant actually be a way he coated the box and the olive jar was the example?
And something to protect it? No, bronze, no, I don't believe that. I think Terry Scant is exactly what it means. Don't stick around. Don't stay there with marvel gazing at the treasure chest. Get the heck out of there. Plus, one of the characteristics of bronze is its ability to tolerate the elements. So I don't think he needed to do that.
Michael O'Connell, has anyone searched 8 miles from Cimarron, New Mexico, up the trail in Philmont, where the Marshals had the gun battle sleighs with the Outlaws?
We certainly haven't. And the reason is because Philmont that area. That had to do with the gentleman that we researched last week, Tom Ferguson. Tom, the outlaw. Tom Ketchum, the outlaw Tom Ketchup. Ketchum. So no, we have not searched that area because it's fenced and it goes on to Philmont, and Philmont is effectively private property.
DJ Novatek. Georgia O'Keeffe had her ashes spread in the Pedernal Mountains. Which she considered her mountain. Do you think there's similarities when he mentions spread ashes in
Olga, tea and Olga, tea with Olga? Well, if it was, unless it was a completely fabricated story, it would have been Olga who would have been aware of what George O'Keeffe. George O'Keeffe spent a lot of time in Santa Fe, and it would have been Olga who was aware of what Georgia O'Keeffe had done, and perhaps imitated her by wanting to have her ashes spread over Taos Mountain, Taos Baldy.
It seems to me that Fenn didn't work too much with the Georgia O'Keeffe art. It was already famous by the time he was running a gallery. I believe that he liked to focus more on those artists who were unknowns and then promote their work.
I think that's a lot of what Forrest wanted to do. He wanted, as you said, he wanted to make his money from the undiscovered artists by promoting them as, quote, discovered, unquote. Georgia O'Keeffe had her own reputation and her own reputation in her own right by the time Fenn was building a gallery business. So you guys like my microphone? Look at this. Little fancy USB microphone. I still haven't figured out how to correct the delay in my headphones. So if I sound like I'm stumbling through my sentences, it's because I'm hearing myself about a second later in these headphones. Thank you, Chris Johnson. We will keep up the good work, and with donations like that, that inspires us to do exactly that. Keep up the good work. David Dow, Toby, can I answer this one? Where are you? Oh, I lost Shelley again. Dang nabbit. Let me invite her again. Hold on. She freezes on the window here. I don't know if she can sign on by herself without an invitation. Send her the invitation. Okay. So I'm going to have to go through these things one at a time. Let me go back up again because I had gotten behind it. Let's see. Could Terry Scant? So we answered that question. Has anyone searched DJ George O'Keeffe? We answered that. Denise by AGK, would you open the olive jar? You could publish it if it is different than what he has already written. No, Denise, our decision is that we are going to keep the treasure completely intact, including not opening the olive jar when we put it up to auction. The only thing that we're going to do is we're going to inventory the contents before, well, listen to us like talking like we're going to find this treasure. But no, hi. Good to have you back. So I'm at Denise Bagley. AGK, would you open the olive jar? And I lost you again. I think we lost you again. Did we lose you?
Hello, are you there?
Okay. Yeah, we got you. Okay. So no, we would not open the olive jar. We would leave the treasure intact. And when we put it up to auction, it would be complete and intact. We would also not remove any of the items from the treasure, including the turquoise bracelet. Patricia Marin. Oh, we have a friend whose last name is Marin. What's
Alejandro.
Alejandro Montoya Marin?
Yes.
Let's see. Gracias por sus videos. Son muy educados para aclarar muchas de mis dudas sobre Forrest y el lugar donde es escondido la caja Tesoros. Okay, so what Patricia is saying is she's thanking us for our videos. She finds them very educational, and to clear up many of her doubts regarding Forrest and the place where he hid the treasure chest. Muchísimas gracias. First pictures of the treasure. I haven't.
Do you think the chest is covered in grass? Did you answer that yet? From Coach?
I didn't see it. No, I missed it. I do not think the treasure is covered in grass unless grass has grown up around it. But it is our opinion that because of where the treasure is hidden, the likelihood of grass growing around it is slim to none. That doesn't mean that dust, including blades of grass, couldn't have blown in upon it. The wall paintings are terrific. Can I buy them online? Yes, you can. Xarben, go to seanwells.me, and I think that takes you to her Etsy. You'll find a link to her Etsy account there. Sean Wells, and it's spelled SeanWells.me, and that'll get you to her Etsy account where you can buy some of her paintings. I have many of them on my walls.
Michelle Patch. When Forrest helped his sick friend in Yellowstone and the black car pulls up, do you have a theory on who wore the white shoes?
I do not. I do not have a theory.
William Hada. If you are the ones who find the treasure, what will your answer be if asked? How can you answer it honestly without tipping your hand that you were the finders?
We don't, William, we don't expect to put ourselves in a position where we are asked the question. We will inform the media using anonymous emails that the treasure has been found. We'll send them pictures of the treasure along with pictures of the newspaper for that day. We will send them anonymously to the media, and the media will announce that the treasure will have been found, and they will probably confirm with Fenn that the photographs represent the treasure, but they will do all of that without knowing who found the treasure. We expect to maintain our anonymity, so because of that, we will never be asked. Now, we have an issue of when we deal with Sotheby's or the Department, the United States Department of Taxation and Revenue, the Department of the Treasury. And if we are asked the question, our response, if we were asked where we found it, our response is going to be where Fenn hid it, period.
I think he means, do we tell people, how can we tell people if they ask us, did you find the treasure? How can we answer that honestly without revealing that we did?
Well, the answer is we can't tell you if we found the treasure or not.
And we just got $5 super chat from Shaco's Star Son saying, let's do this again.
Oh, Shaco. Well, if we keep getting donations like that, we will. So we're planning to do, as you all know, most of you know, we do this every Tuesday and Thursday, and it's more constrained because on Tuesday we have a topic, and on Thursdays we have our book show. I'm sorry, our book club. We're going to do one of these Saturday events probably once a month because we've had requests from viewers who can't make our Tuesday and Thursday shows, but could make it on Saturday. So we'll probably pick a Saturday a month to do this. That it?
I'm looking for a question. They're just having a conversation, which is good.
We're going on 2 hours. Did we thank Chris Johnson? Yes, we did. Thank you, Chris.
Toby, do you have many FPV drones? David Dow wants to know.
I only keep one at a time, but I'm constantly upgrading them. I currently have a Phantom 3 Professional, which is what we use to shoot a lot of the video that we've been on. But this spring, I'm upgrading to the Mavic Pro, the DJI Mavic Pro, which is a more compact hire drone that comes from DJI. I've always only owned DJI drones, but I've only owned them one at a time. I do not race them, so the first person view for me is for the purposes of making photographs and videos. But I'm thinking that they have a special deal right now on the Mavic plus the DJI goggles. So I'm thinking about making that the price is down to $149 for the goggles. So I'm probably going to do that as well. So I'm going to get a bit more of a first person view, but I'm also part 107 certified. And so when I'm flying commercially, I require a observer, what's referred to as an observer or spotter. So when you put those goggles on, you have to have a spotter with you.
Okay. Sean Drozdowski, how much involved was Forrest concerning the illustrations in The Thrill of the Chase?
He was as involved as any author would be. The sense that I get of it is that he had a conversation with his artist about what he wanted represented and how he wanted represented. He has a fascination with those pencil sketches, and the artist that he selected was probably somebody that he'd worked with in the past for a variety of other reasons. And he has a particular look that he wants, and he's gotten that, but he doesn't have to talk much. He has to hand him the chapter, and then the chapter that's associated with the drawing, the sketch, and then get back a draft and tell him whether or not that's how he envisioned it in the chapter. So I don't think it was any more or any less than any other author. And you have to rely, if you're not artistically talented, I'm an art major, but I don't have the necessary hand-eye coordination. And I think that's true of Fenn as well. You have to rely on whomever you hire to do that, to pick up on your ideas. And since he keeps using the same artist, to me, it looks like apparently he's found somebody that he can communicate his ideas well enough with.
Didn't he talk a little bit about the artist in both the Moby Dickens and the Collected Works interviews?
I think he did a Collected Works. I don't remember at Moby Dickens. I don't remember if he was asked the question. I do remember it Collected, the November, 2013 Collected Works. So you can take that video is on our channel. You can take a look at it.
He said something about knowing the artist, the family of the artist that he had hired to do the illustrations.
You remember more than I do.
Okay, well, go back to the Collected Works video and you'll learn more about the illustrations and the artist in that, I believe.
Okay. Is it me, or is my white balance changing as we speak?
It is.
Is it? Yeah, it's a lot more orange than it was. Huh?
Yeah, lighter and darker. And
oh, you know what it is? My LEDs the batteries of my LEDs are wearing out, so I'm starting to get the light from my incandescent lamps on either side of me. So that's an indication that 2 hours is enough. We should probably let's see. Any more questions? Joel Lewicki says, AGK, you're getting more tan. Yeah. My LEDs, my battery powered LEDs are dying. So that tells us we're gonna have to close up here real quick before I turn completely look like a Cheeto.
There's a lot of talk, chat, and I think we can leave it at that and answer anything that we missed.
AGK, Toby, will you do any more podcast interviews? We thought about it, but we're so busy with what we're doing, Jimmy, we probably won't, only because we like what we're doing. It gives us the ability to, kind of communicate with the community. And I think we'll just keep what we're doing. I don't think we'll be doing any podcast interviews in the near future. John Bobbitt, hello. Shelley put him below the home of Brown. It is possible, but for us, John, it's probably more likely something in the color of brown. Monty, AGK, how long would you take to report the found treasure? We would do it as soon as we can send out the anonymous email, because as we've told you in the past, we believe that if you don't announce it, you're responsible for anything bad that happens after that. So we will announce it right away. You're trying to get us to close here. I keep answering questions. Let me just do this. I'm going to feel bad if I don't answer these. Okay. AGK, do you think the poem tells you if the treasure is buried? Cover the treasure, hide it. We don't believe it's buried. We believe it's hidden. Okay. Okay, guys, it is 12:16. That's 2 hours and 15 minutes worth of Q&A. We have had a great time. We're gonna have to cut it off now, just so that everybody can get about the rest of their day. I still have things that I have to do. I know Shelley has to do some things as well. One last reminder: go out and visit Kyle Lazar's to see his new treasure hunt campaign called The Grand Adventure 2. And let him know that we asked you to go visit him. He also has a Facebook page called Kyle Lazar's Grand Adventure, where you can get more. Nikolai, we told you we were starting at 10. We've been here for 2 hours. So, all right, guys, that is it. I'm gonna cut us off here in just another few seconds. Shelley, you want to say your goodbyes?
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us today, and for all of you who donated to our super chat. That was a wonderful surprise, and we just appreciate it so much. It really does help us to keep putting out more content. Like I said, Toby has purchased a webcam so that we could do this today, and some additional lighting and some other things. So the money really helps us to pay for those expenses, to keep the channel going, keep it lively, and to put out more content. So we really appreciate you being here, supporting AGK, and making it a part of your life. Thank you so much.
It's been a lot of fun. We had a great audience today, lots of questions. We love answering questions. We're glad that you guys show up, and we look forward to doing this again in about a month or so. I think we'll do it. But it was great, and certainly is enough for us to say that we'll make this a regular part of our programming. Okay, and maybe by that time I'll have figured out how to deal with this 1 second delay in my headphones. Okay, so that was Shelley Carney. This is Toby Younis. Thanks for watching today, guys. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye-bye.